Hello and welcome to Deep Dive on NewsX World. I'm Asuma Katauka. We turn our focus today to a historic development in global trade, the India-EU Free Trade Agreement, a deal that promises to redefine economic relations between the two major global players. And at the center of this deal, Europe's strategic partnership with India. At the invitation of Prime Minister Modi, European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will be visiting India from January 25th to 27th. They'll be chief guests at the Republic Day celebrations and co-chair the 16th India-EU Summit. During the visit, they will be meeting President Murmu, who will also hold talks with Prime Minister Modi and attend the India-EU Business Forum. India and the EU have been strategic partners since 2004, with ties growing stronger after the EU College of Commissioners' visit to India in February 2025. So what does this deal include? The deal covers several key sectors: trade in goods. Indian exports like pharmaceuticals, steel, textiles, and machinery will gain better access to the EU market. It also includes services. There will be improved market access for Indian IT services, with EU financial services also getting a boost in India. Technology and innovation will also be included. The deal promotes deeper collaboration on the technology sector, creating a shared digital future. Another question one might be asking is, why is this deal so important? For the EU, this deal reduces dependency on China and opens new markets for India. It's a chance to boost exports, especially after losing GSP benefits in 2023. This deal strengthens economic cooperation and provides greater stability for both countries. The deal also carries political implications. Europe is looking to decouple from the US-China tensions, while India wants to diversify its trade relations. This deal comes as Europe seeks to counter China's economic influence, and for India, it's a chance to diversify away from reliance on the US. The timing of this deal is important to note for. This deal comes at a time when India's relations with the United States have been on a seesaw, particularly under the influence of President Donald Trump's unpredictability. The tensions with Trump and his trade policies have added to the uncertainty. His frequent flip-flops, particularly around tariffs, have left India re-evaluating its strategic and trade partnerships. As a result, India has turned its focus towards strengthening ties with other allies. For both, this deal is not just about economics, it's a political move to fortify their positions amid global uncertainty. But as with any major deal, there are challenges. One of the most contentious sectors is agriculture. With over 40% of India's workforce engaged in agriculture, this sector is politically sensitive. The EU has excluded agriculture from the deal, but issues around dairy and sugar will be controversial. The deal also excludes political contention areas, including carbon border adjustment mechanisms and environmental issues. The India-EU Free Trade Agreement is significant, but not without its complexities. Which brings us back to the core question: is this about economic cooperation or strategic alignment? For both India and the EU, this deal is more than just economic gains. For the EU, it addresses the need for a reliable trade partner in Asia, and for India, it provides access to a larger global market and new opportunities. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Sharad Kohli. He's an economist, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Kohli, for joining us. Great to have you. Now, looking at this, how does the India-EU trade agreement shape India's strategic positioning in the global trade system, especially as it navigates growing geopolitical complexities?
Greetings, Asuma, to you and NewsX World viewers. I think the deal assumes a great significance in the present geo-economic and the geopolitical scenario. With the onslaught of US tariffs on India, India lost about I would say, $30 to $40 billion of exports in textiles, in gems and jewelry, leather footwear, pharmaceuticals, engineering goods, marine products. There was a long list. For decades. India was exporting to the US, and all of a sudden, when 50% tariffs and threat of 500%, and then another 25% coming out of dealing with Iran and so and so. So US has been weaponizing tariff, finding it's been issuing threats of tariffs on every other thing. First for agriculture, dairy, when India drew a red line, and then for Russian oil, that why is India buying oil from Russia? So I think the global order has gone through a change, and EU was one of the closest allies of US for a very long time, whether it was NATO or otherwise. I remember EU was so obedient, and it used to always listen to what US was doing. But ever since, I think US has started seemingly, there were some humiliating comments made on the UK, on Diego Garcia Islands, that why did UK give that away to Mauritius? And then comments about Greenland, about then a comment up to the French wines, that I'm going to tax them because you don't want to join the Board of Peace. So I think these bullying tactics in international world order, they do not work. These tactics used to work in 18th and 19th century, when there was colonizing done by the Western powers on Africa and a lot of countries over Asia. India has been a victim of colonizing for 200 years from the British. But I think the President Trump forgot that colonizing doesn't work in the present scenario. Each country's sovereignty is very, very valuable, and the countries are very possessive about their sovereignty. Even a country like Greenland, with population of just 50,000 people, rose up because it's been administered by Denmark. So I think the deal assumes a lot of significance. 186 to 188 billion dollars of bilateral trade, ASUMA, happens between India and 27 European Union countries. And I think it's going to be a win-win situation. It is both strategic as well as economic cooperation, because NATO has almost ruptured now, because NATO, after what President Trump has been, reflecting on Greenland, I think Denmark and other EU nations do not seem to be supporting. And we saw that in Davos, when Board of Peace first meeting was held, when President Trump was trying to create an alternate to United Nations. None of the main European nations joined that Board of Peace. So I think European nations have now realized that they need to decouple from the United States. In that scenario, India has a huge middle class, ASUMA, of about 650 to 700 million people, which is double the population of the US. So I think it's a win-win situation, whereas India gets a market for exports of all the items that I spoke of. I repeat, textiles, gems and jewelry, leather footwear, pharmaceuticals, engineering goods, electronic goods. Every products, of course, have been excluded from this deal, or are likely to be excluded from the deal. That's where things were stuck with the US. So I think the European Union, and a very important aspect of SUMA is that this deal was under discussion for a decade. And suddenly, after, I think one good thing with the US has done out of this, the game of tariff, is that it has brought together the nations, and the FTA deals are happening quicker. India has done the deal with the UK. It has done with Australia in the past. It has done with the UAE in the past. It has done with New Zealand. And the speed at which India is signing the FTAs is remarkable. And it is there. I would say President Trump tariffs has got some role to play there, because it is bringing the countries in a huddle. The countries are coming together. I mean, they're decoupling from the US, or shall I say that the US is alienating itself. So I think the deal assumes a great importance. India is looking forward to the deal. And so we heard Ursula, President of the European Union, saying that this is going to be mother of all deals, because it's going to open huge market for beverages being made and in the EU, for automobiles being made in the EU. For India, it's going to open up also. We are going to see a free movement of immigration workers from both the countries, for education, for the students willing to go and study in Europe. I think this is going to open that gate. Ever since there's been immigration and education problem in the US, I think this will pretty much solve the problem of both the countries, when US has been using tariff as a weapon, ASUMA.
Yes. As you rightfully highlight, both of the countries or the regions seek to find a solution to their problems. In light of this EU's desire to reduce dependence on China and India's aim to diversify its trade relations, how will this deal redefine the global economic balance and contribute to reshaping regional supply chains?
Well, it has already. The announcement of the deal, Suma, has
Yes.
already realigned the global world order because the old world order said EU as an ally of America, China making some voluminous supplies to Europe and America prior to that, although the Cold War between China and America has been there for a very long time. But the fact of the matter is that there were heavy exports from China to America and China to Europe. So now Europe will get a taste of goods from India. Well, India has been pushing its manufacturing initiative in a big way. India is giving better quality at a very economical prices as well. So I think this is going to change the global order. I feel that the next couple of years for the world will drastically see a new kind of supply chain developing, not just decoupling from China, but decoupling from the US as well. Although President Trump did say a couple of days ago that we are going to do a good deal with India. And he praised Prime Minister Modi also. But every time he praises Prime Minister Modi, he issues another threat or another tariff-related announcement that's been very consistent over the last few months. So I don't really buy that because actions speak louder than words. But as far as Europe is concerned, the president of the EU, Ursula, is coming for the Republic Day as a chief guest on 26th of January. And the very next day, which is 27th of January, we are hoping that the announcement of or closure of this deal would be made. Prolonged discussions, a lot of efforts being made on part of EU and the Indian Commerce Ministry is finally going to yield results. And we're going to see a new global order, a new supply chain mechanism, which is going to evolve over the next year or so, or maybe a couple of years. And I think the only country which is going to repent is going to be US, because US economy as of now, Suma, is not in a great shape. More than $38 billion of debt on the US. No new investments coming unless they are being brought by force or under compulsion or coercion, shall I say. That is only coming. Jobs are not being created. Inflation also is very high. Cost of living in the US has gone high. So I think US is finally going to repent this, that why did we do that in an effort to bully the rest of the world. US will end up alienating itself, and the countries gradually will start to stand up and announce reciprocal actions and tariffs, and which US will have to take the onslaught now. I feel that whatever US had to do has done. I think the next round of onslaught is going to be coming as a reaction from other countries, which will not be good for geopolitically as well, because the ruptures in NATO, between the US and Europe, is sending some sound bites of World War III, which is not healthy, because President Trump keeps changing his statement. First, he says, I'm not going to use force. Then he says, no, we need entire access to Greenland. I don't think Europe is going to accede to this request. And this is going to create geopolitical tensions around the world, shaking the markets, disturbing the supply chains. But these kind of deals are going to bring back on rail the supply chains, Suma.
Right, and lastly, this exclusion of agriculture from this deal has sparked significant debate. Is the controversy stemming from the EU-Mercosur deal coming in between? What's your take on this?
We should keep in mind that India is primarily an agriculture-driven economy. As you rightly said, 40 to 50% of the workforce depends on agriculture. About 50 to 60% of the population overall depends directly or indirectly on agriculture. And India is the food basket of the world. We are quite food sufficient, 1.45 billion people. We don't really need, crops from abroad. That's what happened with the US. They wanted to bring in genetically modified soybean and corn and other products to India, which are banned in India. They wanted to bring in dairy in India. And India has got cultural and social reasons for not allowing dairy from other countries, because sometimes the cattle is fed with non-vegetarian or meat-based products. And I think that makes dairy products also not saleable in India. So India is amongst the top 3 dairy producing countries in the world. So I think the red line was drawn there, and that red line remains even for Europe. So I don't see any controversy. This was discussed, Asuma, extensively during India and the European Union discussions, that we cannot allow agri products, and same goes for Europe as well. I think only those products which the country's economy and the structure of economy and the structure of our population and the way the fabric of this country runs in terms of economics and trade It will only be allowed within that framework. Nothing beyond the framework can happen. And this is what a deal is all about, Asuma, where
Yes.
one country or one region understands the limitations of the other country, and reciprocally, the other country understands the limitations of that region. Only then the deal can move ahead. That's where a red line was drawn in the US, and the US officials could not understand this limitation of India, that we cannot compromise on our economic compulsions. We cannot compromise on the structure of our economy. And I think European Union has understood that. So has India. And that's the reason why this deal is going ahead. If there was a controversy, the deal would not have gone ahead, Asuma.
Right. Thank you for sharing that deep insight, Mr. Kohli. Thank you very much. With that, it's a wrap on Deep Dive. Thank you very much for watching.